Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another GREX podcast. This is an initiative by the GREX Young Group to talk with some of the leading people and researchers in exercise for people living with chronic kidney disease. My name is Emilie Ford from the Chronic Disease Innovation Center, and today I'm joined by Dr. Clara Bohm, Dr. Jenn MacRae, and Dr. Stephanie Thompson, all of whom are working nephrologists and research clinicians, and who together were some of the first clinicians to start clinical cycling programs in Canada. Welcome to you all, and thank you for being a part of our podcast today. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So why don't we start off by having you tell us a bit about yourselves, what got you into medicine, and particularly specializing in nephrology and research.
Okay, I'll go first. It's Clara Bohm. So I first wanted to be a vet. Used to volunteer up until from 10 years old at a vet's office in our community on Saturdays. And then when I was 13, I saw The Nature of Things with David Suzuki, and he did a special on becoming a physician at McMaster University. And I said, that's what I want to do, and that's where I'm going to medical school. And that's what I did. And Mac was a great experience, a different way of learning than many other medical schools, but great experience. It's pretty clear early in medicine or in medical school, whether you're a surgeon or an internist to most people. And it was very clear to me that I was an internist. And I liked knowing a lot about a certain area. So I knew that I probably didn't want to be a family physician who needs to know a little bit about a lot of different things. And then I went into internal medicine, and really nephrology clicked with me right away. I understood it. I thought it was really interesting, the physiology, the math, the chemistry, but mostly it was because of my mentor, Dr. Joanne Koppel, who really made me love every minute of my time doing nephrology and taught me so much.
Awesome. Maybe Stephanie, will pass it on to you.
Sure. Gosh, what made me go into medicine? I think similar to Clara, it really truly was from a young age, and it was a calling. And I don't know if that's, where does the calling come from? Is that from just watching a lot of MASH, which could have something to do with it? But it's something that I really, really knew it's the only thing that I wanted to do. And I was always afraid to admit it to people because for fear of failure, and everybody was talking about medical school in my group, but that's just what I wanted to do. Nephrology, though, as a specialty was much later. I wanted to be a pediatrician, a pediatric oncologist, and I didn't understand nephrology right off the hop. I have to say, I did find it difficult and technical and a little intimidating, but I think as you go through, you sort of realize that that's not your day-to-day practice, and other things too, not to say that I don't understand it, but other things too, the culture of the practice becomes really important. What's the culture of nephrology? And I think to be a good physician in any area, you have to be an advocate, but I think in nephrology, you really, advocacy is super important, because renalism's real, people find all kinds of reasons not to treat people on dialysis, or to treat them differently, or not at all. And so they're sort of the forgotten sick. So I found that very appealing, that sort of opportunity. And two, I had a really good role model, Kurt Johnson, who just was clinical excellence, so that did it for me.
Yeah, right on. We'll pass it off to Jenn next.
Okay, I'm a little bit different. I had no clue what I wanted to do. Really, couldn't even decide arts or science right at the beginning. Yeah. So glad I chose science. And I was in a physiology program at McGill, and I love physiology. So I knew I wanted to do something with physiology, and I always loved the big picture. I never really was one of the molecular, cellular level folks. I like how systems interact, and I was interested in medical school, but honestly, it was so competitive in undergrad that I got totally turned off. And it wasn't until later I did a master's degree in cardiovascular physiology, and that's when I was worked with a lot of docs, and I realized, oh, I like the research and I like seeing that we're helping people. And so it kind of melded together, and luckily I got into medicine. I was supposed to be a cardiologist, actually, not, I was not going to be a nephrologist, because, you know, nephrology, like you guys said, is like the black box. You never really know what's going on in there. So yeah, I was, but it was because of mentors, because of the people along the way. And I had some amazing female role models who clearly love what they did in nephrology. And then it just kind of, it was infectious. And I realized like I could do as much heart stuff as I wanted in nephrology, and I could include my love of physiology. So dialysis is the perfect physiology lab. And that's kind of why I found how I found my calling. So I love anything related to hemodialysis. And then you throw in the exercise component, it's just perfect.
What a perfect segue. So the three of you are you know, the exercise pioneers when it comes to hemodialysis and clinical programs. So can you speak a bit about your interests in exercise and hemodialysis, and maybe give us some history of each of your respective clinical programs? So maybe Stephanie, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, thanks. I actually think I was the last out of you three. I think that you both had gotten going, because I certainly know that we got a lot of help from Calgary when we were trying to get going here. But like, you know, I just really think that exercise is a therapeutic tool that we don't use, and that you know, kidney disease is accelerated aging. It is, and the only thing that works to fight the decrepitude of aging is exercise, full stop. You know, and there's evidence to support that in other conditions. So it was an opportunity because we don't use it very much. And certainly, you know, Trish Painter introduced cycling on dialysis in 1980, I think 3 or so on is when she did her first study. But certainly putting that into your own center is challenging, and then trying to translate that into a program, the implementation of that. So we did get a lot of help from Calgary. There was a manager there as well who was quite helpful in talking about how they did it. I remember her telling me, just go slowly, you know, it takes a big culture change to implement. We had to do it a little differently. So in Edmonton, or the north of Alberta, which is where I am versus where Jenn is in the south, we introduced it as a research program at first. And there were some advantages and disadvantages to that, because we started as a trial that rolled into a clinical program. And the deal that I'd made with operations and administration was that if we buy the equipment that's needed to start it, we train the people, you'll continue to fund the people and take over paying for the equipment. And so that arrangement worked, but the drawback with it was when we transitioned into a clinical program, you know, 6 months after this trial stopped, people still thought it was a trial. And they still sort of thought that you had to be really formally assessed to participate. And it added, I think, a little bit more to this perception that this is just an added thing that we need to be doing, where that would exist, I think, anyway, with the exercise and dialysis unit, as we've talked about before. So there were certainly some issues with doing that. And we went on for the next several years like that. It's only been since we got a manager very instrumental in operations, like with the rest of our health authority as our manager, that things took off. And that was the biggest lesson. It's like, I can talk about benefits till I'm blue in the face. Everybody can. But until you have somebody in operations, like on the health authority side, telling people, this is what you're doing. There's the protocol. It's in your sheet. Tick it off. Part of your workflow, it's not going to be as successful as it could be. So that was just a bit of my experience up here.
Yeah. Very interesting. Thank you. Maybe Jenn, we'll pass it off to you next.
Sure. So I was so the program in Alberta Kidney Care South has been around a lot longer, but I was kind of lucky. It was already established in Lethbridge. I think that was the first site. And then us in Calgary, we sort of heard rumor about it, and I kind of thought, well, that is a great idea. But the ball had already gotten into motion by the time I came aboard, so I can't take credit for it, honestly. Our program somehow had managed to hire a very enthusiastic kinesiologist, Kristen, and she basically carried the torch. So I was just there to help facilitate, honestly. And we had the support of operations, like Stephanie mentioned. Like, that was really the critical thing, is that they bought into the concept that exercise on dialysis was a good thing, and that it was part of the workflow of the staff on the unit. And so you know, we had kind of a very positive environment for the program to grow. We definitely did grow the program, and we spread it out to all of our dialysis units. Yeah, it's been incredibly successful, but honestly, you need the operations folks on board, and I truly believe you need a kinesiologist or other exercise specialists to really keep it going, keep the momentum there, keep everybody engaged. And so that's kind of, yeah, where we started. And I think it was over 15 years ago, actually, that we started, maybe even more.
Yeah. And Clara, we'll pass it off to you next.
Yeah, so similar stories. I think the only thing that I would say is that although patient engagement has become a buzzword over the last 5 years, we actually, our program was started really because some people living with kidney disease on dialysis came and said, we would like an exercise program. And so at that time, I actually had been interested in it a little bit, and so got involved that way. And we held, patient engagement, community engagement meetings every month, and kind of developed the program that way. We were lucky. We were actually the first program in Canada to hire a kinesiologist specifically to develop an exercise program. And we were lucky that from the get-go, our Manitoba renal program, provincial renal program, really supported it. And we also had local managers at many of the units that were very keen about it. I think we also approached it the way Stephanie did, that because everybody was really scared. This was like 2005, and everyone was really, really scared. And so by the time we got this going and things, it was around 2006, 2007. But we did a study first in one of the units just to demonstrate that it's safe and feasible and all those things, or at least that there's no terrible things that would happen. So that happened in 2007, 2008, and then we expanded the program in terms of intradialytic cycling, but we also right from the get-go had other programs as well. So we had some kidney classes that were as an outpatient for all stages of CKD that we developed, and we also had an exercise counseling clinic that we had available to anybody at any stage of kidney disease to come to the clinic and get assessed for what they could do for exercise, but also exercise counseling by the kinesiologist at that time. And I think that the really great thing about having the three of us on is that although I think that we probably independently all started, since each program started, we have really fed off of each other in terms of what works, what doesn't work, and just, day-to-day troubleshooting and problem solving. And it's not only us, the nephrologists, but the kinesiologists also often work together and touch base and everything in our programs. So it's really become, although they're individual programs that have their own successes, it's become kind of a prairie story. I call it a prairie story that we've been able to do this. But I agree with Jen as well. And I saw Stephanie nodding her head that the intradialytic cycling component, and probably also just all of the exercise programming that we do, obviously is not possible without having a kinesiologist or some sort of exercise expert to actually run and apply the program.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think you took another one of my segues.